I wanted to recap on what I think is very important, the, the four subjects which I think are very important, which are opportunities, just noticeable difference, and segmentation, targeting, and positioning. I think these are the three pillars with the supporting pillar, which is research that you need to do in order to understand what are the opportunities. So the opportunities is what you have going on in your market that you can take advantage of. So maybe there's some change that generate another change. Maybe there is a new technology being created. Maybe there is a new trend in the population. Maybe there is some innovations done overseas that you can borrow and implement in your own country. So opportunities is anything that is changing that you can make something out of it from a business perspective. The just noticeable difference is what you will do as a business in order to take advantage of that opportunity as best as you can. But the thing is, you don't want to do too much or do too little. You want to do the right amount in order to generate what will be value and satisfaction from your consumers. And then finally is the concept of S&T, segmentation and targeting, where there the interest is to see that not everyone is the same. And just that in itself is an opportunity. And therefore is looking at different group of consumers that would have different needs, and that those needs might be changing. So you may have a company that is very successful at serving current needs, but doesn't see the change in the environment. And then that gives and generates a gap in the market that you can take advantage of. And then you can actually take this gap, fill in this gap with the resources that your company has, the products that the company offers. So the products is a generic term for all the different offers that the company gives. And this can be physical offers and intangible offers, such as a service. And it could be organization, they could be people, and so forth. P is positioning, and P is the more complex subject, because positioning is what is the image, what's the identity that you need to portray, that you have. And you need to do more than just portraying it. You need to definitely have those identities for real, because that's what the consumer wants you to have. So not only buying the benefit of the features, of the practical physical features of the product, but also they're buying the image. So it's sort of in one way it's emotional, on the other way it's more practical. People need to get those two things when they buy a product: the benefit, the feature benefit, and also the emotional benefit, which may be emotional, social, in a sense that they trying to gain some maybe status when buying the product, or some perceive social norm when they buy the product. And then research is very important. Research is something that you want to constantly respect, because this is how you can maximize making the best decisions by doing research. So if you don't do research, you make guesses. If you don't do research, you take big chances. And if you do research, you just minimize the chances. There's no situation where you have 100% chance that something is going to happen. But with research, you just maximize this chance. We have finished the P of products, and we're going to start a specific strategy, which is new product development strategy. So there are four main strategies that you need to know: new product development, market development, diversification, and market penetration. These are the four basic gotta know on top of your head type of strategies because they are occurring, I would say 70% or more of the time as the basic strategies that are used in business. So this strategy consists in 8 steps. These 8 steps are completed in this order, depending on how new is your product, you will cover all the steps. But you may have a product that is not 100% new, and therefore there may be steps which are sort of combined together. And so you don't end up with 8 steps, but you end up with 6 steps because there is a combination. I think it's important to, at this time, before we go further, is to see the perspective of why do entrepreneurs work for free. Entrepreneurs are people that are not waiting for anyone. They are doing things because they want to. They are doing things because they are leaders. They are doing things because they are innovate. They are doing things because they are very confident on themselves. And they believe that they have the solution to people's problems. So they are problem solver. They are very independent in general, and they care for their own values more than what other people think. So obviously, you can't be just too sure of yourself, but that because otherwise that would make you someone that has arrogance. But you want not to be pandering to others because you want to be coming up with ideas that not only you think are good, but you've also researched if these ideas were good, because you don't want to think that all the ideas are good just because you're so good. And also you don't want to think that every idea should be pursued. There's so many hours in a day and so many days in a week that you have to be selective. Robert Kiyosaki is a very interesting business advisor, because he's someone that is very practical in his thinking. So I wanted you to look not at the full video because it's a video that is a little long, but I think the first 5 minutes are very interesting to just see this perspective about why you should be ready to work for free. And if you're ready to work for free, you can be an entrepreneur. I want to make sure that people realize that it's business is not all about money. Business is very much about understanding that there's problems, and you're just solving problems. You're a problem solver, and therefore you're looking for opportunities, and you constantly are in search of leading, taking responsibility, and being someone who understand that if you're solving problems, you eventually get rewarded for this. And so I think that's very, very important message. And so that's why when you do business, you embrace all the facets of business, including the facets of research. So why would you want to do research? Because by doing research, you can make better decisions. And so understanding that in research, you have different level of research. You also have continuous research, which is called marketing intelligence, which is continuously looking for information that would generate maybe some discovery of some changes that you could take advantage before anyone else. And so that's important, understanding that research is not about only doing surveys, but it's also about having discussions with people and going in their mind. I find that very, very interesting. Last week, I was able to talk about something that was kind of a little, I suppose, a little crazy, because I was telling you that there's all kinds of businesses, including a business which I was saying what's important about business is to understand that there's many things to look at, and therefore it's sort of confusing and complicated. But at the end of the day, there's two things that you need to really focus on. One is the concept of break-even analysis, and the other one is the concept of satisfaction. So what is these two concepts tells you. Satisfaction is you need to understand what people see as value. What do they expect to get? And the value is therefore solving the problem that they have. And satisfaction is how efficient you are in solving this problem. Is if you create solutions, people want you to be the one that will they will get provided with from. And the second thing is break even, because break even, and that's where I was saying last week, is if you're creating new product, you must well create product that creates wealth, that creates profit. And so break-even analysis is very much looking at how much profit you can expect from a certain business. So it's satisfaction is more of a business marketing management perspective versus break-even is more from an investment perspective. So you invest in what? You invest in a solution, but you also want to invest in something that gets you the most money. So you want to work all your life, yes, but how do you want to lead your life? Do you want to lead your life just sort of struggling with money, or do you want to be more successful? And to be more successful, you have to understand the value of money. Like he was talking about making an assembly of multiple things. So there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done. So I was telling you last week about this business in America, which is about selling blood, and that that was 2.2% of what's exported from the United States. It's actually blood. And that when they collect blood, there's two companies that do more than 90% of the blood collection. And most people think that they are collecting blood to give it to the poor. But in fact, what they mostly do is get blood from the poor and give it to the rich. And so that's how you make money. And what you also want to do is collect as much blood as possible from a perspective of getting it for almost for free. So that way you can, whatever you charge it, you're making money. Making money, it's always this question of how much difference is it between what you buy and what you sell. And the more you can make a difference here, the more it's easier to do business, because you have lots of ammunition in order to keep doing business and being more efficient. So with the blood being something that they get for very little and they can sell for a lot of money, it's easier to make money. And the other thing is, depending on who you can sell it to, you can even make more money. So if you have a big oligarch and you have a yacht, you're not going to take the same blood as if you're a street person that needs blood. There's different variation of bloods, which have received different number of testings with different qualities of bloods. It would be very ignorant, or maybe innocent, to think that there's one quality of blood for all. There's different qualities of blood, and there's even some bloods that may be helping you stay younger. And so that kind of blood is the blood that the very wealthy oligarch who have a big yacht would want to get. And so every business has a markup, and the markup is something very important because that tells you a lot about how quickly you will get rich. And again, the speed, the timing is again something that is very important in the break-even analysis. So just for yourself, this is not in the textbook. It's probably in no textbook on earth. Is if you want to succeed in business, you worry about two things: satisfaction and break-even analysis. When I talked about this last week, I got a little surprise. There's a student that insisted to meet with me. And I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? And he said, well, I don't really want to talk about the project. I want to talk about something else. It's funny because this was something I talked about last week in this class, but I talked about it in another class. So it was another student from another class where we are not working on milk. I want to tell you that. So you have no idea. Guess what the students wanted to talk to me about? A student from another class. And I met with him on Thursday morning. And he was eager to speak to me about what he wanted to do as his personal business project. He wanted to talk to me about milk. He's in another class, and he's very, very excited about milk. And I said, what are you so excited about milk? Do you have any idea why? Because he said that during my class, that was a Wednesday night class, I mentioned that as well. he said that gave him an idea, which he had heard before. So my idea of collecting blood from people and selling it to someone else gave him an idea of collecting breast milk. And he said, there is a big business in breast milk. And I said, breast milk? What do you mean? He said, oh, you get people that come to your lab, like for the blood, they draw the breast milk and then they sell it. And I said, you sell breast milk? How would you sell it breast milk? Suddenly I was interested because of the A2 Milk project. And I was also interested because I discovered about 3 weeks ago that 3 or 4 weeks ago that Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, the founder of LinkedIn, Jack Ma. So Jack Ma is one of the most famous businessmen in China, and a number of other very famous people have invested in a company that makes breast milk. So it's like Bill Gates investing in breast milk. And then this student's coming on Thursday and telling me that he wants to invest in breast milk. And us doing the A2 Milk Company project, I was starting to wonder what was going on. And so I listened to him and I discovered that there's a crazy world out there. And then I've talked to a number of people since Thursday, and every time I asked them if they knew anything about breast milk. And I discovered that breast milk was also something that was used not just this year or last year, but there was even the Rockefeller. You know, the Rockefeller was one of the most important, influential family in America, and apparently even the Rockefeller people have long time ago were caught somehow dealing with consumption and supply of breast milk because they, I suppose, found some interest with this product. So then I was like, okay, wait a minute. So this has been going on for 100 years or more than 100 years. Yeah, people know. And then I'm like, wow. Man, I thought this was already pretty advanced, the A2 protein thing. And so then I started wondering, ooh. And so I asked my son, and just as a person like that, to ask first. And he told me that he knew all about it already, that this is on TikTok. I said, what do you mean it's on TikTok? He says, yes, there's a lot of sports people, athletes, bodybuilders that actually sort of brag about the fact that they are consuming breast milk. And so that's what research is about. That's what innovating in any industry is about. It's like you have antennas, and you have these antennas on, and you're just keeping an eye up, and then you hear this and you hear that, and you start making connection. You know, the connection. I'm making this connection between those Japanese people for the past decades, many years, that have been drinking milk, and it's like $100 a gallon milk, and it's this very specific cow in Japan that they can only harvest at a specific time because it produces specific hormones and specific things and all this. And when you drink that milk, you feel better and you sleep better. And I'm like, okay, wow, that's interesting. And then there's Bill Gates buying the breast milk company, and not just Bill Gates, but Jeff Bezos and all these guys. And then there's the A2 protein, and I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. That could there be a connection between the breast milk, the A2 milk, the Japanese cow? Could there be? And that's what research is about. Research is about finding some things that may not be connected, that in fact are connected, and then using the connection to your advantage by having the product that speaks the right words to the right type of customers. So that's interesting. I hope you understand my message in between the lines about how you do research is not by looking at, I sell A2 milk. I sell A2 milk to compete against the other milk, the A1 milk, competing against a lot of things. And now, you're competing against breast milk, you're competing against plant-based milk, you're competing against other products that have high calcium, you're competing against what people want. So if you are a bodybuilder, what do they want? Could a bodybuilder be a specific type of STP? Could STP be involved in this? Could STP say, you know what, there's the kids, there's the bodybuilders, there's the professional athletes, there's the people that want to sleep at night, there's the people that have low energy, there's the people that want to stay young. And could my product have anything to do with that? Would I change anything in my product and make it even better? You know, like you look at the milk 20, 30 years ago, it said milk. And then it says milk with vitamins. Then it says milk with vitamins, low fat, and omega-3. Then it says high iron. Then it says A2. You know, so constantly changing because the people are changing, because the environment is changing. So therefore, you have to constantly look in your environment to find this gap, to find this change. And then you adapt the product to those changes. And how do you look for those changes? It's number one is curiosity. Curiosity is why, what? It's constantly thinking about the customers, about the product, about satisfaction, about value, and about making better margins by offering something that is a good replacement. And it just makes it's like people at a Palm Pilot. And I remember in 2005, if I went in the class and I said, how many people here? 150. Good. How many people have a Palm Pilot? And then you would find that there would be, of 150, there would be 120 people with the Palm Pilot, right? Now, if I ask you how many people have a Palm Pilot, nobody has a Palm Pilot. This was 2005. This is, soon to be 20 years. And a lot of water went under the bridge in 20 years. And you may be wondering even, what is a Palm Pilot? You have never heard of it. So things change, and it's good because it gives new people chances. Because if things didn't change, it will be always the same people that would be in charge. But because things change, the people who are in charge, they get comfortable, they get old, and they go away. And so therefore the new people have a chance. So that's what business is about, is looking for your own chance. So entrepreneurs are therefore people that are curious, but they're not just curious, they're also humble. And so is entrepreneurship for you? And this is the next video that I want to show you. Do you have any comments before I go further? I know some people have posted in the chat that, and thank you for doing that, is there's a lot of health benefits from breast milk. It's good for the microbiome and healthy gut. So obviously people have heard this. My inclination is it's more likely that breast milk be better from a health perspective than cow milk, because obviously cow milk, it was not meant to be perfect for humans, because obviously it was for a baby cow. So one could imagine that. So yeah, where would A2 milk fit with this trend of breast milk? Is there something that we could take advantage of? And personally, I think there is things that you could take advantage of. Obviously, they did the infant formula, so they've already realized that there was some benefits in going that direction. I think by going for certain group of consumers, there is one thing that comes forward as an obvious thing, which is the packaging. If you go for a different group of consumers, I don't know that you could do that with the same packaging. I think by having more competitors entering the A2 milk, I think the problem is, how do you differentiate yourself? Key problem, how do you differentiate yourself in a market that used to be very niche, sold in exclusive, limited amount of stores, to now being sold essentially everywhere with a price that is sort of low enough that most people can buy it. How do you differentiate yourself? And I think it's a critical success factor. So I give you the terms that you should know. I think it's in being more targeted, and I think it's in having better packaging that is better representative of the specific target that you're going after. So if you say, gee, that gives me a lot of ideas, because if you are a bodybuilder, you don't want cow milk because you've been told and you read in the magazine, and it's been going on for 20 years, that it's boo, not good, for all kinds of reasons that might be true, and eventually you start believing in them, that you started going for plant-based and all that. There's all kinds of discussion on this, and you sort of lost. But if you were to hear, there was a milk that was meant to be the one made for the athletes, because it had A2 protein and it had very cool communication on this with the packaging that would be sort of sporty, whatever sporty packaging means. What matters is that the target believes it's sporty, and then you'll create this packaging. And so the product would not have to be tremendously changed. It may not have to be changed at all, but just the packaging, so people feel better about the product. So it becomes more the emotional side that tells you, yeah, this looks more sporty. It looks more like what I would expect from a product that would help my muscles, or my recovery, or whatever the sports things that these people will want to look at. But you see, I don't know the answers to all of this. And the only way to know the answers with more accuracy, again, 99% or less, would be to do some research and ask the potential consumers, what do they want? So would I go and do a survey of 5,000 people that go to the gym? No, that's too time consuming and takes too much resources. And so I would just grab one or two and discuss with them. Last year, that's what we did. In December, we did a project that was about a special sole. So it was a sole that had a special design, and that special design was helping people to be connected with Earth. And so it was supposedly bringing you some medical benefits. There was all kinds of people that would want medical benefits from a shoe better connected to Earth. There's the people that believe in, reflexology, about natural medicine. There's also the people that are not too healthy and they would want to gain better health from whatever that could help. And there was the people that believed also in things that can't be explained, and sort of spiritual and all that. And so they care for that shoe, but that shoe was sold under companies, brands that were not famous. So we were thinking about which would be the best big brand that would be able to grab this pair of shoe and make it interesting in their product line. And so that was the job of the students last semester. It was different in the sense that they had the opportunity. I gave them the opportunity, so that section was sort of completed, but they had to identify the best company for that set of opportunity and justify it. Do you have any comments or any questions? I'm saying a lot of things. I just want to make sure I'm not confusing you, but more sort of opening your eyes and curiosity to the various concepts that needs to be looked at. All right, so I'll keep on going. So this video is just 1 minute, so it's very short. And in a very short time, there's a lot being said.
Here are my 5 red flags for why you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. You're more concerned about the money. You're more concerned about the fame. You don't want to put in the time. You care more about yourself than your employees, and the customers aren't number one. Those particular 5 demonstrate for me a level of humility in being a business owner, and a level of modesty, and a level of self-awareness, and a level of understanding who ultimately drives the business. There is no one captain of the ship. And if there is, that captain better have taken direction, taken advice, learned from, listened to the entire crew. And if they don't, that business owner is going to be going down with the Titanic. And I see it. I've done almost 75 episodes, and it surprises me how people continue to make the same mistakes. Shocks me.
So yeah, so this have you anyone watch is show on TV, The Profit?
Nah, but my business teachers showed me a good amount of his videos.
Oh, so you've seen some
How
other
he-
show?
Yeah, like how he fixes like businesses, like he helps.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, it's called The Profit, and so it's a really good show. Yeah, those shows are pretty realistic, and they're entertaining. They're not very long. Well, what's not so fun about those shows is they have a lot of commercial, unfortunately, and so it gets very interrupted by the commercials. But otherwise, it's a very good show, and there's always something to learn. But it's oftentimes the same subject. And the same subject, I would say, that comes back is the lack of humility. And the lack of humility is this idea that when you are the owner of a business, you are not the consumer. So you're not trying to satisfy yourself, but you're trying to satisfy someone else. And therefore, you need to have the humility and curiosity of putting yourself in the shoes of your customers and trying to see how they feel and what you could do to make them feel more satisfied. And therefore, it's not about you and your needs, but it's about their needs. So that's a very common trait. The other common trait is that you don't focus on money, because if you focus on money, you're very short-term oriented, but you focus in the long run. You focus on the repetition, the repetitive consumers and the word of mouth and all that. And you focus in bringing a real value. And so people they may be spending more than they wanted because they see value and they therefore keeps buying. So that's very important. And I recommend this show alongside another show called Shark Tank. I think that these are two very good shows that are worth for business students to watch because there's something to learn. Anything else that anyone wants to add? Okay, so again, so to do new products is you need to really put yourself in the shoe of the consumers and look in your environment for changes that you can take advantage of. So opportunity identification for the sake of creating a new product is very important. When you look at your environment, you're therefore looking at the micro and macro environment. I bring this back because I'm not going to test you in the final on the environment. You were tested in the first quiz on the environment, but that doesn't mean that you should forget about it. In fact, you need it to justify your opportunities. You need it to make your recommendation because it's the environment that drives your decision. What the environment tells you from doing research is what you believe in, and therefore that's the situation. In this, using the environment, you write your SWOT analysis and you look for making something that is noticeably better, but too much better because otherwise it'd be overwhelming the customers and not under what they would expect. Otherwise, they have no compelling argument for using the product. The consumers will want to get the product because they see a difference, because they see a change. And so this is called the need recognition. They recognize that they have an opportunity to get something better from what they have, and therefore they jump on it. The other thing you want to recognize is that there are different group of customers that buy at different time. And so when you're doing new product development, what is it that you worry about? Well, you worry about making the right product at the right time for the right customer. But those customers sort of evolve with the time because they are not the same at the beginning that buy your product and the same as the people that buy your product a few months down the road. So the first thing you worry about is not trying to sell it to everyone because that's going to be too expensive and almost impossible. At the beginning, you worry about selling it to the innovators. But to sell it to the innovators is you need to get them to know about the product and be engaged. So innovators tend to be more educated, definitely more interested in your product, more knowledgeable. They buy more, they spend more. And therefore, they are not a large group, but they are very specific and they have specific habits. They go to specific websites, they have specific apps, they go to specific stores, they belong to specific communities and so forth. So it's sort of easier to pinpoint at them. But it would be wrong to sell a product and bypass the innovators. To sell well products, you need to have the full spectrum of the first people that do the initiation, then the people that followed are the innovator and the early adopters, and then early majority and so forth. You need these phases of different group of customers in order to grow. So for this, I wanted you to see this video about Derek Sivers on about creating a movement. So creating a movement is very important because that's how you get the innovators and that's how you get the early adopters. Oftentimes people think that the most important are the people that are the founder, are the creators, but it's not so much the creators that really create the momentum. The people that create the momentum are the people that joined soon after, and these people create the momentum for the next group. What it is it's a number game. Success is a number game. So you have, sometimes people say, oh, the hardest thing to do is to make your first million, but it may not be a million. The hardest thing may be to make 150,000. And when a million is actually much easier. So for different industry, for different time, for different products, it's different numbers, but it is true that the getting the ball rolling is very difficult. And you may be rolling really fast, slowing down, nothing happens, accelerate and never stops. So it's different momentum. But Derek, in very simple ways, is going to try to explain us what is this momentum.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type like the shirtless dancing guy that is standing alone. Remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, TED. Thanks.
So what do you think of this concept of movement?
I agree.
It's so what do you agree with? What
I agree with because like anybody can like start something, but if they don't have like that first person to go with them and like follow their leadership,
yeah,
then it's not gonna look very like attractive to other people because they want to. A lot of people nowadays want to fit in, So leadership is important, but when you start going like some numbers, I think like the first few is more important because it can start something, be more beneficial. So I understand what he's saying, and I agree with it.
that's right. That's right. I agree with what you're saying. Yes, it's that's why I say it's a number game, because there's a lot of in business it's called bandwagons. The bandwagons are the people that join in after they feel like it's what it's expected from them. It's less risk. At the minute they believe there's more risk in not joining, therefore they join. And so there's a lot of people they don't think for themselves, but they think as a group. And so group thinking is therefore following the norm, and the norm is to not it's to accept status quo. They may not agree, but they don't know how to disagree, so therefore they just join. And so that's very important to understand that. So it's interesting to see that you can make people do certain things even though they know it's wrong, but just because they believe they don't have the power not to do it. They follow the power, and the power says it's okay to do it. So if the power says it's okay, even though they don't think it's right, it's the power, so they just follow. And so when you create a new product, is you want to have yes, Rosie, you had your hand up, sorry. We lost Rosie.
Oh, you were asking. Yeah, I was just saying, I remember you mentioned before, I forgot what the term was used. I'll have to check my notes, but it was something like artificial advertisement or something like that, where it's kind of like that idea where whenever they put extra money in the tip jar to make it look like people put tips so they can put tips. So it's kind of, it reminded me of that. I don't know if you remember the term that you used, but it was something like artificial marketing or artificial advertisement, where if you have a lot of people in the line, then they'll think like they'll come and want to get something from your store too.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, I think I mentioned this not too long ago as well. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but it was when you go to Disneyland, one of the biggest line is what's the biggest line at Disneyland?
Maybe Space Mountain.
Yes, Space Mountain. Space Mountain is very bad, but
Mm.
there's one that should not be a big line that is almost as bad as Space Mountain. It's the Doll Whip. The Doll Whip. So the Doll Whip is it's like it's not an ice cream. It's more like a sorbet, like a pineapple sorbet. that comes into a glass, and it's very whipped, so it's very light. And so if you go to Disney and you look at all the lines, the worst is like Space Mountain, Indiana Jones, the Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Dole Whip. The Dole Whip, yeah. People like an incredible line just to get a whip sorbet. So then you go, it better be a great sorbet. And if you ever had it, it's really good. But what's interesting is that this is also available outside of Disneyland. And when you go to the places where it's available, there's never a line. But why is there a line at Disneyland for the exact same thing that you get outside of Disneyland in other stores, and there's never a line there?
Is it like ice cream?
Yeah, it's an ice cream.
So I think maybe
Yeah.
because while they're waiting in line for Space Mountain, then they have something in their hand to kill time while they're waiting in the line, right?
Yeah, you would mention that, but where the Dole Whip is, it's very far from Space Mountain, for example, just as an example. And
Okay.
it's you would take, I mean, could it be possible? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, people are really super organized, you know, like efficient, like artificial intelligence, where they would say, all right, there's 3 of us. One goes to Indiana Jones, one goes to Space Mountain, and one goes to the Dole Whip. And we're going to spend the next 45 minutes not with each other, just maximizing times and hoping that the first one that gets the thing can run to the other places and call. I mean, you need to have like GPS, AI type of organization to do that. And so I don't think anyone tried to maximize by getting to all of these lines at the same time and all that. It'd be very tiring to do that. So I think most of the people, they go through the line, and sometimes it's not even that convenient, because eventually the line gets to be in some places and you'll have to cut a lot of people. So do people do that? Yeah, but I don't think it's the majority. There's probably a few people that do that, but it's not the majority of people. I think the people go to the line and they only do a few rides that day because it's so busy. And so the Dole Whip is just the ice cream. And you may say, oh, because it's always hot when you go to Disney. But I think it's also because it's what people do. They go to Disney, they go to that ride, they go to that ride. And the people that are used to go to Disney, they used to say, okay, we'll go for the Dole Whip. It's almost like a robotic. And so they end up going to the Dole Whip, and there's so many people, and it's just, the Dole Whip is just a small little store that they get congested really quickly, and it generates a real mess. And because people see the line, and people see the line, they figure, oh, there's a big line, we may as well go and enjoy what everybody's trying to enjoy. It must be really good. And so I think there's a lot of that. You see this with stocks, people buying stocks or selling stocks. They do the same thing. Is they rush on stocks, they sell all stocks. And there was a concept having to do with this. This was in something like 1820. In 1820, the rich people of the world. Who were the rich people of the world in 1820? They were the English. They were not the French, because we had Napoleon that just lost a lot of war at that time. They were the Dutch. So the Dutch were very wealthy. And in fact, the Dutch were running most of the money. So in 1820, there was no Wall Street. There was barely any banks in America. They were not that powerful. The powerful banks were not even in London, which they are now, but they were in Amsterdam. And in Amsterdam, you had the big, powerful banks. And so the English were very smart to convince a few people, because it's again a question of leadership. So you didn't have to convince all the bankers to come, but you just have to convince the 4 or 5 very famous bankers to come to London, to an area of London which is called the City. So the city, it's like, Manhattan in New York, and they came to the city and they created the stock exchange in the city, which was eventually the inspiration for the stock exchange in New York. But anyway, so the Dutch were very good with money, and they were becoming wealthier and wealthier, and so wealthy that they started developing some interest in things that were superfluous, small things that had no meaning. And one of them was the collection of tulips. And so they were buying tulips, but like you buying big diamonds. I mean, they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on one tulip. And those tulips that someone bought $100,000, someone else bought it, and then everybody wanted to buy that amazing tulip. And so those tulips became very expensive. And eventually, there was one time where suddenly people looked at the tulip and said, this is kind of crazy money. It's really not worth that much. And they all sort of stopped buying the tulip. And so it was one of the first recorded situation of fear of missing out and bandwagonism from a financial perspective. And it's called the crisis of the tulip or something like that. If you put it on Wikipedia, you see the crisis of the tulip in Netherlands in the early 1820s. And so this is the same. It's people are used to live in community, and this is back to the prehistorical times, is they don't like to be alone. Most people like to be in group. That's how the DNA is. Most people like to be in collective. And what they do is to protect themselves from the animals, the wild animals, or crazy people, is they live together. And as they live together, they build this response, which is to constantly follow groups. And that's just the way it is. So people just jump on groups. They see groups, they just can't help it. They just bandwagon themselves. And so when you have a business and you're launching a new product, you have to be very cognizant of this. And obviously your generation is very aware of that, because you are very much born and living in an era which is called the social media era. And in the social media era, it's even more obvious, because that's the whole point of social media, is to create those surges of people flocking as much as possible. And so this is orchestrated originally by some influential, then eventually those influential became paid advertising, essentially, and with huge amount of conflict of interest, because they gain from what they recommend. And therefore they recommend more what they gain more. Therefore they are not objective. They're just becoming totally financially subjective. And then the people didn't see the difference, and they keep flocking behind these people, not realizing that what they are promoting is not to their own interest, own self interest, but to the one promoting it. So that's the situation, and therefore understanding the concept of movement, and this very simple little video that shows in a very entertaining way how this happens visually in a matter of 2 minutes, is very revealing of how we live in our societies and how people behave. Do you have any other comments? Okay, so therefore we understand that new product development is a necessity. Why is it a necessity? Because you cannot sit comfortable selling one product, even though it's very successful now. If it's successful now, it's a matter of time, and this time may be very short before it's not successful anymore. It's kind of what is very sad. Is nothing is forever, and things are getting shorter and shorter in their lifespan. So to succeed is therefore constantly embrace the concept of innovation. But innovation is not just the pursuit of new, it's a pursuit of value to someone. So you're not good because you're new. It's like, this product's going to work. Why? Because it's new. No, it doesn't succeed because it's new. It succeeds because someone cares for what it does, and it does it better than what they used to before and that they cared for. So it's replacing it. and unfortunately, that's also true, is sometimes it's replacing it in a worse way. What? So it's true that sometimes the replacement is worse than what they're replacing it with, but they're not realizing that, because again, that's also part of the bandwagonism, where people are influenced by what other people do. So if all the, it's like you had to filet beef, and people were eating filet beef, and now you train them to think that chicken is better, and they all flock to chicken. That doesn't mean that beef is bad. It just means that you are very successful in making them eat chicken when they could have filet, and that's possible. And that happens all the time. So last week I was showing some examples of companies that were very courageous to go after the cola drink, and it has been made. And so that what that did is it created the fact that Coca-Cola had to respond, couldn't sit pretty, and they responded with creating different products. So what's interesting is Coca-Cola is highly evolved. It was Coca-Cola was using sugar, real sugar originally, and then they stopped using sugar. Why did they stop using sugar? Real sugar.
Is it because it was cheaper to use corn syrup?
Because it was cheaper to use corn syrup, exactly. You're absolutely right. So imagine this, we are Coca-Cola, and suddenly we go, oh, we've been using sugar. Why we've been using sugar? Well, because sugar is sweet. People want sweet, great. But then there's an accountant that comes and say, hey, we could make money if we use corn syrup. Okay, but as long as it tastes the same, if people don't see the difference and we save money, then fine, let's do that. So then they did that. Then eventually people said, oh, you know what? I can't have sugar, and I need something healthy. And so then they invented a product, which is a chemical product, and they told the people that it's healthy. And so people believed it. And then eventually, you know, there's one lawsuit, two lawsuits, too many lawsuits. And then they say, okay, we can't keep doing this chemical. We're going to have to come up with another chemical in order to buy some time. And then they shifted towards another chemical until that chemical is bad. And then they shifted to another one and all of this. And that's what they do. For at the end of the day, actually, that's what they did here, is they went back to creating a Coca-Cola, which is made with cane sugar, which was the Coca-Cola that you originally had. So all this time, in that situation is kind of funny, because in all this time, it took 40 years, 50 years to go from cane sugar back to cane sugar. And in the meantime, for 40 or 50 years, everybody in between was convinced that what they were drinking was the best. It was so much better from what people were drinking 10 years or 20 years or 40 years ago. So that's the world that we live in, where sometimes innovation is just about bringing something back. But you don't want to do it too quickly, because if you do it too quickly, people within the same generation are going to realize that. And if they realize that within the same generation, they think that you are bad. But if you do it across generation, it's not so bad, because every generation thinks they're smarter than the next one. And therefore, when they get the new product, even though there was something that was from before, they can't really blame anyone, because they didn't consume it before. It was another. So they're just consuming the right thing within their generation. So Coca-Cola keeps innovating. It comes up with Coca-Cola and coffee, Coca-Cola and energy. It has guarana. So guarana is supposed to be the thing that really is very good. And so all that matters is that you believe it. Because if you believe it and that makes you happy, that's all that matters. It's like when they do testings with Red Bull, people believe Red Bull works. So if they believe it works, then it works. That's all that matters. Is they believe it works, it works. But the reality is, does it have to work? And in fact, they've had some not lawsuits, because they actually fought it before it became a lawsuit, and they paid off the people that they were suing them not to pursue the lawsuit. But that lawsuit was about the fact that Red Bull didn't do anything. And eventually they went to what's called arbitrage, which is before the lawsuit. And they paid a big amount of money to the people suing them. And they were able to get a court decision also that made that request the only one. So someone else couldn't come and do the same thing and ask for money again. so they could not be repetitive. And what did they do for the community is they actually gave for free Red Bull to anyone that would ask within a period of time as a compensation for the fact that there was big questions about the product. But what they all forgot to do is advertise the fact that they were giving product for free. So since they didn't really advertise, at least in a very efficient way, the fact that they were giving product for free as a compensation for the nation and community, and not many people ask for the product for free, and therefore I suspect it didn't cost them very much because they were able to get out of having to pay very much money and go into sort of a complicated matter, which was, does it really work? Which would have been very damaging to their brand. So at the end of the day, people think it works. People love the fact that it works. People love about the product. Maybe that's all that matters. People are happy, people see a benefit, and they bandwagon. These is different products from Coca-Cola, which are adapted for different markets. So the market where you see Coca-Cola with a lot of flavors. So there's some flavors in America, but not a lot. And you actually see flavors that you see in America. You see these flavors long before. So Coca-Cola is an American product, and all the major innovations are made outside of the United States. So the one that you see right now are usually from Korea or from Japan. So then you'll say, oh, I'm not surprised you come from Korea or Japan, because these are markets where people are requesting a lot of innovation. So there is a propensity within different cultures to want more new more often than other cultures. So I can speak, for example, for my own culture, being French. In France, when it comes to food in particular, people don't like innovations. When it comes to food, on the contrary, they prefer when things are more traditional. However, with the fact that the world is becoming a more global place, and because of social media, the younger generation have a greater like of new than the previous generation, but it's still not as much as Japan, who it's almost like the number one thing that you need to say is it's new. And if it's new, that means it's better. So this is a product from Japan, which is called Coca-Cola Plus. It's Coca-Cola which has some kind of product that is added, and therefore it makes Coca-Cola almost like healthy, like you will drink it for better health. This company is used to be a small company that was launched in order to bring a more traditional type of tonic water. And obviously, like every time, they start with a traditional non-flavored tonic water, and then they start adding some flavors which are the more traditional, like cucumber, Indian, and all this. And eventually then they go into more esoteric type of flavors like elderflower and all that. But this company, like I said, was tiny, super tiny, and then they became quite large now, to the point that they created a lot of competition. And that competition was obviously felt by big companies such as Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola went into making their own type of tonic and creating them in small batch and making a design that makes them look small batch and all this. So when I say the traditional bottle of Coca-Cola will not work if you're trying to sell it to a group of people that want a specific Coca-Cola, which is not the everyday Coca-Cola, but which is the handmade Coca-Cola. They need a special packaging. And that if I made the assumption that if you made a special packaging and you didn't have to change the product very much, but just the packaging, there's these people that look for the authenticity will buy it just based on the packaging. So the content is sort of secondary. The packaging can be primary. Now, I want you to think about this, the same thing as A2 milk. Who is drinking A2 milk? Who should be drinking A2 milk that doesn't drink A2 milk? who's drinking a little bit of A2 milk and could be drinking more A2 milk. So oftentimes business, 99% of the time, just to give you a high number so you get the message, opportunity come from a new group of customers, another group of customers, a more focused group of customers that want the product, but they would want it if it was doing something that it's not currently saying, or if it's presenting itself as something that is not currently presenting, or if it's sold in a different channel of distribution where it would be catching the eye of the target. So targeting is very powerful. Targeting is understanding that people want something specific just for them. They want what they want, and you cannot sell them something else. But knowing exactly what they want puts you in a better position to serve them what they want. Okay, so I show you these Coca-Cola that are made, I believe last week, where I was showing the one down. There's different one made in France, in different regions. There's the Paris Cola, the Brittany Cola, and the center of France Cola, and that's kind of interesting. So you could even think, would it be possible, because we've very much live in this world where there's Whole Foods and Bristol Farms and Sprouts and the local brewery, and this morning I was reading about the fact that in Napa there's more and more small wineries, like they call them micro wineries and all that. Would it be possible, and would it be effective if they were starting to make Los Angeles Cola, LA Cola? Could LA Cola work? I'm convinced that LA Cola could work. I'm convinced that there's enough people in LA that would want to. So obviously, it's like, would people buy LA Cola? Right now, it doesn't exist. Nobody's buying it. Nobody's drinking it. But all you need is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and celebrities. And you have Hollywood that start drinking LA Cola. I would not be surprised that there's other places in the world that would be wanting to buy the Hollywood Cola as well. The Hollywood Cola that would make them feel like they are in Hollywood. I'm sure it would work, but it would take someone to understand the process of diffusion, how you diffuse the innovation, how do you get the movement, how do you sell it first to the right people, as if it was like a disease that you're transmitting, and you want this first people to be the right group of people that would generate the word of mouth and the movement that would grow. Okay, what do you think? Would it be possible to do a Hollywood Cola?
Like in general?
Yeah. Instead of being Coca, you see, there's a Paris Cola. Instead of being a Paris Cola, I don't think in America they'll drink a Paris Cola. It doesn't make too much sense. But a Hollywood Cola that would be made by a family-owned, smaller production with some, maybe, some twist, like some element of flavor in the cola that would be sort of connected with, it would be maybe the water used to make Hollywood Cola has been filtered with diamonds, or something like that, just to make it more Hollywood, I guess.
Yeah, like to make it eye-catching by the name, sure, right?
Yeah, eye-catching by the name. People will say, oh, there's this celebrity and so drinking Hollywood Cola, and oh, did you see what she does, and did you see what he does?
Or like there's something called diamond water.
Yeah.
It's kind of eye-catching when you hear the name.
Yes, I think there's Hollywood water, in fact. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say is, if 20 years ago you said that you are going to start a car company, people would have told you you're crazy, because all the cars were set, and in fact there was less and less car companies. They were disappearing. And then you come and you say, I'm going to create a car company. Most of the car company that are created have been created in the past 5 years. So suddenly it's a new era. It's change. And so change is happening all around us. And sometimes the timing is wrong. Let's say if you were a car engineer and you graduated 15 years ago, maybe it was really tough. Right now, you're graduating, there's a lot of work. I remember the people that went to the university and they say, oh, I want to be a car engineer. They don't need that much car engineer. Now suddenly they need a lot of car engineers. So things constantly change, and you could not be studying what the same thing that you study today, maybe in 20 years. It's going to evolve. So it's the same thing. The world is evolving, and the fact that it's evolving, it's creating opportunities. This evolution is like a train that goes in front of everyone, but those trains are invisible for 99.99% of the population. 99.99% of the people, they have trains going in front of their nose that they don't see. And there's some people that they go like this and they go, okay, wait a minute. And they look and they say, let me see trains. I'm concentrating, I'm looking at trains. I'm looking at opportunities. I'm looking at the things that are going to be the momentum tomorrow, next week, those changes that can get right now for barely anything, but they're going to be worth a lot in the near future. So that's what business is about, finding opportunities. So if you have a company like A2Milk, that's what you got to do. So that's why I'm 100% certain that you cannot use one single packaging. And I told you this before, when in 2002 or 3, the client was not A2Milk, it was actually Red Bull. And we told Red Bull that they should be changing the packaging. And not so much changing the packaging. We told them that they should be creating different sizes of bottle, because back then they only had one size. And so we said there was a need, there was an opportunity for Red Bull coming in larger size, in fact, not smaller, but larger, because they only had this tiny little can. And we thought, obviously today, when I tell you that, it looks very obvious. Just so what you need to know is it didn't work for over a month before they could figure out there was an opportunity for this. But once they found there was an opportunity and we reported it, Red Bull told us there's no way Red Bull will ever consider making different sizes of bottle. That would go against the company vision and all that, which I guess they changed their mind because that's what they did. They eventually, but a long time after that, started changing and offering different size of bottles. So I'm thinking, you don't want to say A2Milk need to offer different size of bottles because the professor has said that usually this could work. No, what I say is, what do people want? People want different size. Okay, what do they want? Who are these people? Why would they want different size? No, they don't want different size. They
Professor,
want. Yes.
Professor, I'm sorry. I noticed something about like A2Milk and all the other A2Milks. They don't sell like big gallons. They only sell, I don't know, the half a gallon. That's something that I noticed.
Yes. Yeah, they only sell one size, it seems to me. So remember when I told you, if we were in 2021 and this was April 2021, and you came and you wrote about the fact that there should be a chocolate A2Milk, I would think this is brilliant. I would think that's an obvious idea. I would think that's an A+ idea, because there's so many pros for this. It's certain. And I would even tell you back then, if you were back in time, I would have told you it would be crazy. It would be crazy if they did not do that. Obviously now, I look like I'm preaching the past, and that at the same time using the present. But obviously now it has happened, and I don't know because I don't work for A2Milk, but I would imagine that they are very successful with this. Are they very successful with everyone? Probably not, but with a specific target, I imagine they are. A specific group of customers, that chocolate. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think that product is appealing to the over 60 years old, for example. But maybe it's appealing to another group, maybe the kids. Maybe it works very well for the kids. I have no idea why they brought it up, but I'm only guessing it's for the kids. Now, if right now we're thinking about the different sizes as a simple thing, I think that would make sense. But who is it for? And why do they need the different sizes? Why? Why do they need the different sizes?
I have an idea. Like
yeah?
different sizes of like these drinks right here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like for the people who like maybe like a woman might want like a more smaller bottle that's petite, make it suit them. Maybe a man might want like a bigger bottle, or vice versa. Or somebody that drinks a certain type of drink might want to get the glass bottle, like maybe a beer or something like that. I don't know. It's depending on what's visibly appealing to you.
Yes, I think there is a question of what's appealing, but there's also a question like, you get married. How many bottles of A2 milk? No, you live by yourself. How many bottles of A2 milk you drink? You buy one. Now you get married. How many bottles of A2 milk you buy per week? I'm just saying, one. Now you're married and your wife has 2 kids, 2 babies. How many A2 milk you buy? Still one. But now those kids are 2 years old, 3 years old. How many A2 milk you buy? 2. Now they are not 3 years old anymore. They are 6. And there's a third one that came. So you had twins and then a third one or whatever. So now there's 3 kids. Now how many bottles of A2 milk you buy? 4, 5. Suddenly, when this starts happening, there may be a question of not getting people to buy more bottles, but bigger bottles. Because you have more people drinking, you just make bigger size bottles so people have more bottles. It makes a big difference. And so so the number of people that consume. So big families versus small families, in summary. Another thing that may happen is if the people cook. So it's like if you drink the milk versus if you drink the milk and you also cook versus do takeaway. Only drink the milk 1 bottle a week. Drink the milk and cook 2 bottles a week. So therefore you may buy a bigger bottle. And maybe more than a week, maybe every 2 days or every 3 days. So the size is not just about how you feel about the design of the bottle. The size has a lot to do on how big is your house as well. If you have a big house, you tend to buy bigger bottles. Because if you have a big house, you tend to have multiple fridges. If you have multiple fridges, you're probably more rich. If you're more rich, you just buy more stuff. And if you buy more stuff, you just have a big fridge. You just fill up the fridge. And so if you see big bottle of A2 milk, you just fill it up with your big fridge with these bottles. So it's just it's consumerism beside design. And sometimes the issue of the design is to design something that looks bigger. So you just realize that people don't want to spend more money. They just want to spend $10 a week on milk. And therefore that means they only buy 2 bottles of milk a week. But then you want people to buy your milk. So what you do is you design the bottle that it looks bigger. And so when they look at the shelf, and consciously, not consciously, is they feel they're getting a better deal with the bottle that looks bigger or more appealing. So the design is also this, but the volume is also the practicality of having more of a product. That way you don't have to buy it as often, and you don't run out of it more often, because that way you can have more quantity. So you don't want to go more often shopping. You want to go shopping the same amount of time, but be able to adjust to the needs that you have. Okay. Do you have any questions or comments? Thank you for jumping in and commenting on that. So I imagine that you could mention about opportunity, looking at, so how would you go about increasing the volume? So increasing the volume, that's an idea. So saying strategy, we're going to make big bottles. Strategies, we're going to make bigger bottles. Is this correct? Is this correct if someone writes in their paper that the strategy is to make bigger bottles or smaller bottles?
Would that be a tactic?
Well, the problem with that is it's sort of a tactic, but it's even more specifically an ID.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an ID. So you don't write IDs in the strategy, you write strategies, which you could explain what's the ID behind the strategy. But so it's okay to say we're going to do new product development strategy, which will consist in also market development, as we will be designing, as the idea is to design new size of bottles in order to appeal to different group of customers. So different group of customers, that's strategy, I just said it's market development. But because we're designing new bottles for these people is also new product development. It's not a very deep new product development strategy in the sense that all you're doing is changing the design. So it's a mild new, it's a little new product development, not big, where you're also changing the content. So just the design of the bottle, and therefore it's more of a market development, which is that you're saying that changing the size of the bottle is going to increase the consumption from different group of people that were not buying that much before. They're going to be buying more because there's different sizes. If there was the same people buying more of your product, there would be therefore market penetration. So if you say we're increasing the sizes and the same people will be buying more, you can't say market development. In that situation, it's market penetration. It's just selling more of the same. And there will be market penetration, selling to the same people with a different design, with some new product development as a secondary strategy. And the idea is just changing the sizes so people who have different needs can have the different size of bottle that adapt to the different needs. The problem, yeah.
Whenever they sell smaller bottles, they bring the price higher too. So I guess that's a strategy, right?
So why, so that's a thing that's a very good question that I will answer you because I know all about that, unfortunately, because I sell bottles, but not with milk inside, with spirits. And so before I was doing this, is that I would not know the answer to your question, but I know now. And I'd say most people, 95%, maybe more of the people don't know the answer, is why do smaller bottles are more expensive comparatively, per ounce?
Because of convenience?
No. So the answer is kind of sad and weird, but what happens is the standard bottle is the size where the bottle in itself is the most produced, the most industrialized, the more available, the one that's the most competitors trying to sell that standard model. So let's say so let's use the Coca-Cola bottle that we see on the image right now. You have the big one, the big red one, red on gray, and then you have the two small ones. The big one may be worth 10 cents. It's probably worth less than 10 cents, but just to keep round numbers, it's worth 10 cents, the big one. And the small one is worth 20 cents. So you go, what? The big one, the cap is worth 5 cents. So the small one, that's why they make sure that the small one use the same cap, because then you buy it 10 cents. But when the small bottle has a smaller cap, the smaller cap is not 5 cents, it's 10 cents. It's all about the number being produced. And then when you need to bottle this, when you need to take this and make it go through a machine that's going to fill it. So you go buy a machine, like usually the best maker of machine in the world are the Italian and the Germans. So you can buy also Korean, Chinese, French, Spanish. But let's say the Italians is oftentimes the best for filling bottles. It's just like that. And so the Italian, the big size they make thousands of machines per week. The small size, they make 50. So the small size machine is also 3 times more expensive than the big size machine. So if you are in accounting or in finance, you get the message, which is it's the cost. It's the cost of the material, because the cost of, so obviously, I mean, I'm not saying that the small bottle is going to be $10 and the big bottle is going to be $5, because you still have the cost of the liquid inside, you know. But if you look, the big bottle is going to be more expensive, the small bottle is going to be cheaper. But if you look per ounce, meaning for the volume of liquid that you're getting, the small bottles are much more expensive. And it's all to do with the fact that these bottles are produced in less number in terms of, and then there's another thing is when you want to get the machine that puts the label on the small bottle, that machine is more expensive too. And here's what's crazy is you see those 2 small bottles of Coca-Cola. If you wanted to have a version of smaller bottle than that, that becomes even more expensive. Again, you know, it would be $2, $5, $10. But $2 for the volume that you go inside, that's like 6 times more expensive comparatively. And you go, how come? And it's all the cost because it's a volume. It's the volume of available product. And also there's another thing is it's the cost of the plastic. When you're doing the big bottle, in terms of weight, there's not a big difference of weight and all this. It's just, it's very surprising. And I learned that by being in the industry, why the small bottles are more expensive. So that's why when you sell small bottle as a producer, you actually don't make that much money because you sell much less small bottle most of the time, the minis. And because they are so expensive that you have to reduce your prices, otherwise you don't sell them. So your profit margin is very small, smaller on the small bottle than on the big bottle. So most of the time when you sell smaller bottles, is you're doing this as a convenience because you know there's a need for this. So you just do it. And sometimes you do it almost at cost, just so you have it in your portfolio. So in the case of Coca-Cola, on those soda specifically, it is possible that the small bottle that we see on my screen right now are actually the standard bottle, which are actually cheaper than the big bottle and in that situation. But if you were to go smaller than the standard, that's what I mean. That's when suddenly it's very surprising because they become comparatively very expensive. In your group report, you have to work on the SWOT analysis. And following the SWOT analysis, you need to come up with a set of strategies, and not tactics and not ideas, but strategies. If you look at my samples, to make it as obvious as possible, what I did is I made the name of the strategies in the paragraph in bold and underline systematically. So should you also make the name of the strategies bold and underline? I think you should. In fact, I've seen out of the 30 reports that I gave feedback, 25 had this, at least they had a comment that was bold and underlined. I'm not saying that these comments were always strategies, because that's the common mistake, is it tended to be more tactics than strategies. So not to be confused, to make it 100% bulletproof and simple, is what are the strategies. I feel like almost telling you that if you are not stating one of those 4, you're most likely not stating a strategies. So market penetration, product development, market development, and diversification are the 4 basic strategies that you see all the time. These are like the most common. They're super common 70% of the time. And that's what I was saying before. But there's more than these strategies. There's also another set of strategies. Essentially, there is the 4 basic strategies, then there's the 4 competitive strategies, and then there's the 4 other competitive strategies. So it's 2 competitive strategy and 1 basic strategy 3 times 4, 12, plus another 3 basic strategies again. So that's 15. So it's essentially 15 strategies you need to remember. What are the other basic competitive strategies? Are overall cost leadership, meaning you try to be the cheapest. Focus means that you are you're looking at a specific group of customers, so it's like more like a niche. It's also called focus. Differentiated means that you are very much making a product that is different, so you're going to end up most likely looking at a consumer which is a niche. And then middle of the road is when you're trying to cover multiple group of customers. These are more specific as well, but they're very important strategies. So product leadership, that could be a strategy that's followed by A2 Milk. Are they capable of having that strategy? They are. Do they have the resources? I believe they do. Do they sort of deserve? They can. Have they achieved this within the A2 Milk? I believe so. So that could be one strategy that they're already doing, though, product leadership. Could you recommend that they continue to do product leadership? I think you could. Product operation excellence is more how they run the business. So in terms of, how efficiently they produce, how quickly it gets to the distribution network, how the distribution network manage the stocks. For milk, you would imagine that the freshness is very important. So the timing is very important. So you would imagine that the sooner the product, as soon as the product is produced, very soon it gets to be placed on the shelf. Obviously, these products are ultra pasteurized, so they are not long life, and they are not like super short life, but they do require a very organized business. So in general, I would imagine that they're good at operational excellence, but I think that's across all the competitors. So you want to have more operational excellence in the case of A2 Milk by, I know that they have some issues related to how they make sure that the milk is A2 certified, and it's a complicated and expensive procedure. So I'm not sure how you would go about operational excellence for them, but that's another strategy that could be. And again, these strategies don't come from an idea, but they have to be supported by the opportunities. So essentially, by reading the opportunities, I should be able to sort of guess which strategy you're most likely to recommend. And and vice versa, if I read your strategies, I should be able to guess which opportunity that you have identified. So that's where you need to have the connection between these two. And that's why there's a connection between opportunity and strategy. There's a connection between critical success factors and the key problems. This needs to be connected. And then there's a connection between these two sets, and within an overlap between strategies and critical success factors, and strategies and key problems, because you're trying to provide value and satisfy a need. And the last one here is customer intimacy. So customer intimacy is when you have a very good relationship between the customers and the company, in the sense that the customer is almost like a co-producer, or is a co-creator, or is they have some kind of share in the business as a cooperative, or the more they buy, the more they save, because there's a frequent promotion and savings as a club member or something like this. So customer intimacy for A2 Milk, I don't think it's so appropriate, but I don't see that it could not be done. In fact, personally, I think A2 Milk is a milk that is very human, and it's treating the animal in a very human way. And I get it. That's the result of the production of the A2 protein, the selection of the cows, the caring for the cow and their production in order to get that protein and so forth. But even though I see that in the quality of the product, I've tried and consumed it myself, and I can see it appears to me as being much better. However, I don't see it so much in terms of the relationship that, or at least the perceived relationship that we can have as a consumer with this product that in a sense seems to be by nature not very industrialized. So it's a farm product from a farm that is not very industrialized, yet there's not a feeling of authenticity, at least from the communication from A2 Milk, in the sense that it doesn't look, I don't feel the authenticity. I don't feel that the handmade type of milk. I feel like it's almost corporate, still corporate farming for a very dedicated and cared product. But unfortunately, I'm missing the emotional element of the fact that it comes from a cow, that it's got to be an amazing cow. Just the fact that it's not every cow that way. I would love to have more of a connection with this cow. And so customer intimacy here, maybe more pictures, more videos of cows. Could we have more information on the cows and the location where this was produced? Maybe information on the farmers that worked on the batch of milk that we are getting. So I think customer intimacy, at least for me, I can see how this, and again, related to the opportunities that people care for the origin of the product. They want to have some kind of reassurance in the product that they buy, and the fact that it is what it says it is and all that. So there's lots of opportunities you could find to work on the relationship. I would have fun actually working on the customer intimacy, because I think it's something very different. And unless you living in a small village, we obviously don't live in a small village living in Southern California, by south of Los Angeles, north of Los Angeles, or east, west in this area. It's very metropolitan. But unless you live in a small village, you don't get to have a lot of access to dairy farms to get your own milk, and therefore having the possibility of seeing that this is actually what happens at A2 Milk Company, and that would make a big difference. And I could be the only one, and that's why I think research is very important, because I'm only phrasing a lot of things that are my ideas, and I would need to do the research to see if these converts into real objective market points that could support these ideas. And then I would go and put it in the report. I would keep the idea for before the research, and then I would turn them into opportunities and concrete strategies with explanation about who are the customers and so forth. So we looked at 4 plus 3 plus 4, and then there's another last 4, which is market leader. So market leader is really when your objective is to have the largest market share. So for A2 Milk, I suppose it's possible that that would be the strategy. And I wonder if that's not the case already. I wonder if they are not the market leader. I have not read anywhere that I remember anyone that was telling me that they were the largest producer of A2 milk. It would be good to know. That would obviously make a strength, A2 Milk Company, largest producer of A2 milk protein, milk based on blah, blah. Market challenger is very much the company that knows they are not leading the market. However, they are like the number 2. So they're trying to fill in the gap by at least being aware of the fact that they have this gap, and they try to use it in order to learn from the leader. So they may be very profitable because they gain from the good decision made by the leader that they can borrow, and the mistake that the leader may have been making that they can avoid making as well. Market follower, it's further as a distance, which is a company that doesn't take any risk by only doing, so it's like they are one step, two step behind. So they are extremely risk averse and they're very careful, and they only, they're very limited in the amount of straight innovation. So they will copy as much as possible. So they are essentially just gaining from being cost efficient by reducing their costs and offering a product that is just almost as good, but not the same. And then market niche is what we had before when we talked about the focus, the market focus strategy, which is a strategy where you're selling to a very specific group of consumers. And this very specific group of consumers are people that you've realized that they are smaller, but however, by being a niche, a market focus on them, you should be able to offer something that is very specific to them. So you will have probably to create many different models of products in order to be able to do market niche for all of these different markets. So the difficulty here is the fact of having all of this product not become a burden by having too many products, and by having too many products not take care of them well to the point that only a few do well and make enough money to sustain the entire group of products. So to make money, you need to have a high profit, which you will have, but because you don't sell large volumes, you have a high profit margin, but not a high profit in volume. So you create many products with high profit, low volume, in order to end up with a high profit volume. And so it's the fine line of too few products and too many products that you have to control when you're doing the market niche. But that's a very, very good strategy. I want to show you this pyramid because this pyramid is like a summary, a visual summary of how you run all of this. What I mean by this is that you're going to have your 4 Ps, product, price, place, promotion. Inside the 4 Ps, you're going to have strategies as well. So now I'm definitely confusing you because you said there was 15. The 15 strategies you saw before are the high-level strategies. They are the corporate strategies. So what can we have inside the paper, the 2 strategies that you want us to put? You can have the corporate strategies. You have 15 to select. And you need to have, can they be combined? Yes, because I did it earlier in the class where I said it's market penetration and market penetration and product development. And I was talking about the bottles where you would change the size and so forth. So you can have a combination of strategies. Obviously, you don't want to have too many combinations because then it becomes very complicated. More than 2, it starts to be complicated because then you're trying to do too many things for too many people. However, now you're saying there's other strategies. Yeah, there's other strategies because there's the strategies at the P level. So they are not for the whole company level, they are at the P level, but they are not tactics. So branding strategies. Yeah, branding strategies are strategies. They are not corporate strategies, they are branding strategies. So they are strategies at the P level. They are not tactics. So an example of branding strategies, brand extension. Multi-brands, when you have multiple brands for either the same customer or different customers. So that's a strategy which can still be what you have inside your recommended strategies. So you could have market development as a corporate strategy and multi-brands, which kind of makes sense because you have different markets. You could say different market, different models, different market, different models, and different brands. So you could do that, but you'll have to explain why suddenly you need to have different customers, but you'll have to have different brands for these different customers. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to create sub-company. You have the A2 Milk Kids brand. Then you have the A2 Milk I don't know, A2 Milk Sport brand. A2 Milk Sport, it's not the same as A2 Milk Kids. The packaging is different. Maybe there's slight different components that you add inside. One has more omega and the other one has more protein or whatever. Slight difference that you do. And it's just for the target. Is the product significantly different? Well, I mean, this is a matter of nuances, small details. You know, it's a matter of debate, not a huge amount of differences, but what matters is that the consumer sees a huge differences. And suddenly now they see the product, they buy, 1 buys, 2 buys, 3 buys, 100 buys, 1,000 buys, and then you have your movement, and then people suddenly becomes A2 Sport milk lover. And if they are A2 Sport milk lover, that strategy was multi-brands, market development, blah, blah, blah. And this is why we're doing it. That's what this report, this group report is about. It's about you thinking conceptually, but practically at the same time, and using research in order to back up what you're trying to explain. This exercise, as I said many times, is not an exercise that you should learn because you just want to pass this class. You can just learn it, pass this class, and forget all about it. But if you go in business, you will use it again and again and again. And if you're planning to have your own business, it's not going to be again and again. It's every day. That's all you're going to do this kind of things. So just so you're aware, is we looked at other sub-strategy when we talked about the product last week, is we looked at product line development, line extension, upstretch, downstretch. And
Professor, what about the Hershey's milk? Is that a strategy?
so what's the strategy behind Hershey?
Because they're using the chocolate to make their sell.
So I give you the idea. You tell me what's the strategy. The idea is to add chocolate to A2 milk, so that way there's more kids that drink A2 milk.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the idea.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the strategy?
Oh, I thought that was the strategy.
No.
Let me see.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So what we're doing with Rosie is exactly that. Is okay. Here's the idea. That's a good idea. What would be the strategy? What do we put in bold and underline inside the report? What does it do to do that?
Professor, is so the strategy, that's like the action taken?
No, the strategy is the big name that is like a language that everybody can understand.
It would be product development, right?
So it would be product development because you're making a new product with a new flavor, and they never had a flavor, which is more. It's more work to do the first flavor and less work to do the next flavors. Once you've done one flavor, it's easy to do a second and a third and a fourth, and then you don't even think about it. The first flavor is more work. The first flavor is definitely new product development. In fact, I'm 99.9 sure that when they did the chocolate, they were thinking of doing other flavors. It's not like they went, okay, we're going to do the flavor of chocolate. Okay, don't say anything. Oh, chocolate. And we do nothing else. No, they probably say, okay, we need to do a flavor for the kids. All right, why for the kids? Well, the kids, A2 milk, it sounds too medical. They don't like medical stuff. They want fun stuff. Sweet. Oh, sweet. Oh, sweet. So sweet, we got to do chocolate. Yeah, I guess chocolate makes sense. What about strawberry? Strawberry is cool, but strawberry, it's maybe more of a girl thing. Chocolate's kind of both. So let's start with something that goes over both, men and girls and boys. And it's a little bit of a market development because we've never really done a product for a specific group of people. We just did A2 milk for the people that want good milk, and everybody wants good milk, and they're going to see the product and their eyes going to go, boom, that's for me, and go like this, and rush to the store. And then they realize, it's not that easy. So that means maybe we need to do things for certain people. like kids, yeah, for kids. So therefore it's market development and new product development. The next flavor may be for kids again. So let's say now I say, Rosie, thank you for your question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's getting there.
It's getting there. So now let's say someone comes and say, Professor, I have another idea. We're going to do strawberry milk for kids. What's the strategy?
Are you thinking of like who you're trying to sell it to? Is that the strategy? Like the audience?
Well, if if you say A2 milk is making a product specifically for kids.
A2. Well, you said A2 like sounds like medical. And then it's like, oh, chocolate milk. So that's kind of like
Yeah, because
more of the children.
yeah, because A2 milk, I mean the name,
Hmm.
and if you explain, look, the name, the look of the bottle, and the explanation of what it is. It's like you have a little 5 years old. Say, you need to drink A2 milk because it has A2 protein, and A2 protein is better for your bones and for this. The kids hear that and say, give me Scooby-Doo. I don't want A2 milk. I want Scooby-Doo.
Oh yeah, like how Nesquik has a bunny on it and it's
Yeah.
like attractive to kids.
Yeah, the first time I had kids, they could walk and make a decision. I took them to the store and I make them look at the breakfast cereal, and I say, oh, which one do you want? Do you want the one that has low salt, high protein? And the guy, my son, looked at me and said, no, I want Scooby-Doo. You know what I'm saying? I want Mickey Mouse. I don't want the one that is low on salt, high on protein, low on sugar, low on corn syrup. That's medical. A kid hears that right away. The taste in their mouth it's got to be disgusting. Scooby-Doo is great.
It's all psychological, I guess, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's psychological. So if you say A2 milk, say, oh, let's go for kids. We're gonna do chocolates for all the reason I said, and it's gonna be in a new packaging. Thank God they did a new packaging. And then they're selling this to kids and the kids like it and they go, oh, what could we do next? And they say, why don't we do strawberry milk now that we've done so well with this? What would be the name of the strategy? So I give you a tip. It's not market development this time because they're already doing it for kids. So it's market penetration because it's just another flavor. And then and then will it be product development? Not already. It's whatever we did for Hershey's, we do it for the sort of the same. So it's a tiny development of the product, nothing big. So it's market penetration and some adjustment of the packaging. No, I say, okay, great. People, that's in April 2022, they did the strawberry. Now in June, they come up with the coffee. No, I'm going to do the vanilla first. Maybe not the vanilla. Which one should I do? So I'll do the cotton candy. I do cotton candy flavor A2 milk. It's for the kids. And it's called cotton candy. What's the strategy? Or strategies?
I think maybe like on the bottle, like maybe they have like a picture of milk being poured into cotton candy or something.
Yeah, but you're thinking too tactical. That's a detail.
Oh, okay.
So what's the strategy? The strategy, I mean, it's that this chocolate was market development because they're not going for kids. Now they're really going for kids with the chocolate. Therefore, it was penetration with the strawberry. Well, it's still penetration with the cotton candy and a slight product modification. Now they're going for vanilla. You could say again, it's penetration. It keeps on being penetration. Now, suddenly they say, we're going to do coffee flavor A2 milk. So I give you a tip. Kids in general are not crazy about coffee.
Market development.
So this time it's market development because they're going for a specific group of adults or whatever. And then the product development, they may say, you know what, we'll do an adjustment of the chocolates, what we did, and the vanilla, what we did, and the strawberry, what we did. Or would they say, no. These people, we need to do something totally different. What do you mean? Well, it's going to be a glass bottle. I don't know what it is, right? But suddenly they decided, if they decided, if you, the consultant, decide that those people, because it's not you that decide, it's the people. And if the people say the packaging needs to be very different, we're not kids, it's not going to work. You can't just change the color. It's got to be more than that. Then it's a new product development because there's more work to be done. So then you're looking at me and saying, you know what? I thought I like marketing, but I don't like it anymore. One, there's too much creativity. Man, too much creativity. And two, I really don't like it anymore. It's sort of subjective. I like mathematics. 1 + 1 = 2. But there's no debate on this. Versus what the professor is explaining right now. It's like, I don't understand. Why does it go from development and next time it's penetration and all this? I don't understand. I'm so confused. So I get it, but you need to, that's what business is. Why are there so many people that are billionaires and they didn't go to school? Because they can work with things that are subjective. They can work with things that are abstract. They have a good common sense. They see the rationale of the flow of things. It's like, okay, we're getting the kids now, but are we getting enough the adults? No. How do we get the adults? The same way we got the kids. Oh, what did we do for the kids? We gave them chocolate. Oh yeah, that's true. Oh, so are you telling me we're going to give them coffee for the adults? Yeah. So it's a logic. It's just a logic of business. You know, it's like one thing leads to another. So then there was I think it was Rosie. She said, oh my God, so I get it. There's a lot of psychology. Oh yeah, my God, it's psychology. You know, there was a study that was trying to anticipate who people vote for the president of the United States. And you know how you can tell from the look. They say, number one, if he's a man, sorry, he's a man. So if you're a woman, not yet. If he's a man, the more hair they have on their head. No hair, no bueno. Like what? Why do they want a president with more hair? How come a president gets psychologically, unconsciously evaluated from the amount of hair on their head? Makes no sense. That's how people are. I mean, maybe you've heard of one person called Sigmund Freud that was telling that people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want other people to see them with. And it's the unconscious mind. It's what they feel, what their dreams tell them to consume, and all that. It was true for the most part. So people vote for a president that is a male, that has a lot of hair, and is taller. That's the three things that they love. And then there's the concept of Republican and Democrat, but that's essentially mostly for America. That's just in America. People have been trained to think in terms of A, B. There's no A, B, C, D. It's always A, B. It's good, bad, because that's how you train in America. You're either good or you're bad, and there's no gray. You work within this specific. So that's why you have Republican and Democrats. And so when people buy milk, there is psychological component that you have to sort of identify, and that are important for people. So there was someone that made a very good comment earlier, and I didn't mention it inside the chat, where they were saying that she buys plant milk for herself, and she said she was buying organic milk for kids.
Yeah, almond. She says she gets almond milk for herself, and then for her kid, she gets 2% organic.
Yeah, 2% organic. I mean, that's so interesting. It's like you hear someone say that, right? I'm working on the A2 project, and I'm just the way I am. I'm sorry, I get very excited and I go, wow, I want to speak to her because that's an interesting mix. Like, why not all drink the same milk? You would imagine that the good one goes to the kid, the net so good one goes to the parents. I mean, that's one way to think about it, but it's obviously not what's going on. Is this obviously because there's a belief of when you get older, you don't need cow milk. That's when you're young. And when you're young, you need cow milk, but you don't want cow milk that has bad stuff like hormones. So you're going to give Horizon, which you should all be drinking. It's a good French company that owns Horizon. I trust French people. I'm just kidding. And so Horizon, and and Horizon should be worried about A2 milk in a way, because that's a competitor that came from the other side of the wall, in a very interesting twist, because they're not focusing on the organic. So that's another interesting dilemma that people may have is, do I drink organic milk or do I drink A2 milk? And maybe, and nobody has mentioned this, nobody yet, but could the future, the next step, the next just noticeable difference. Ooh, remember the just noticeable difference? I think the next GND may be organic A2 milk. I mean, if someone shows up with organic A2 milk, suddenly I'm like, I mean, organic A2 milk or A2 milk? What's the next question? Is who makes it? How much? Right? It's how much. And if the how much is the same price, then that's a deal breaker. That's a disruptor, because suddenly you go, if it's the same price, there's no reason to drink just A2 milk, because A2 milk company is very careful not to talk about this organic thing in everything that they discuss. They just don't talk about it. So it's not clear how organic they are or not organic. To me, my guess is to make the quality milk that they make, and in addition, to go to the process, which is probably complicated and maybe not totally transparent, of getting to be certified organic. In addition, it might be an associated cost that they have realized that if they were to do that, the price would become so expensive that they may be losing, they must have done the research, I'm just guessing, that they may be losing too much money, and that they may feel that there's not enough competition right now in A2 milk in general, that they need to have a just noticeable difference of being organic as of now. And this may be a decision to take later, and they may keep it as like ammunition for when there's too many people doing it, and maybe too many people doing it and then too cheap compared to them, that they have to either reduce their price, which is oftentimes the worst thing to do. That's how you bankrupt yourself, or to add to the product to something that is significant, and to be able to get the consumers to pay for it, if there's consumers that are willing to pay for it. I think,
Professor, I'm sorry.
yes.
I know
Yeah.
that Alexandria Farms, they do organic A2 milk.
Okay, so thank you for this. So Alexander Farms do A2 milk. I had no idea that they did organic A2 milk. If there's already someone doing organic A2 milk at Alexander Farms, thank you. I don't know who that was, but
I realized because I have a bottle in my fridge.
you do?
Yeah.
Who's speaking? I'm sorry, I can't tell.
Oh, Caesar.
Caesar. So Caesar, thank you for all this information, because that's a huge, that's massive. Yeah, that's massive. That's massive, because that means I should have seen Alexander company mentioned way more inside your reports than I did. How many times? I must have seen it 4 times out of 30 papers. If Alexander does A2 milk and it's organic and it's certified organic, it should be mentioned 30 times. So I'm just sharing this message, and I thank Caesar for volunteering this information, because that's very helpful.
The difference though, Professor, is the cost. It costs more.
Oh, it costs more. Okay. So now the question, okay, great. So thank you for telling us that. Now the question is how much more? And there you get your answer. Because obviously, I didn't know it existed. And like I said just 1 minute ago, I said, if pay-to-milk does it, it's going to have to be more expensive, but you have to be sure that there's people that are willing to pay more to get more. There's nothing wrong for more and more and more expensive products, as long as there's more and more people that want to buy it. What's wrong is when you keep thinking that you would buy it for more and you make it better and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize that people, they don't get it. So they think it's too much money. They don't realize that it's much better product. If they don't realize it's more better product, don't do it, because you're just going to do something that is right, but it's not going to be successful. And therefore in business, there's successful and there's right, and there's two different things. So you, and therefore you have to be careful. Because you don't want to be doing it just one time and never again, because that doesn't make it right for you, because you close your business. So A2Milk either has a problem, a big problem, or they know, and the difference is significant enough that it hasn't caused them much trouble. It's also possible that the A2Milk is new enough as a concept, as a big mass growing business, that people are just happy to get A2Milk, and they don't realize that there's many competitors. And the minute they realize there's many competitors, and then when they look at them, they see that there's organic, and that's what gets their eye up, and they see the price difference is acceptable, then they may start shifting. And then the shifting is when you see it, and when you see it, that's when the company has to step up by saying, okay, we need to get organic too. And then we need to get to organic too and be slightly cheaper than them. So that way we get market share and all of this. It's a game. Business is a game, and you have to just to keep playing it in order to grow it. So I wanted to bring this up, and I'm just going to conclude on this. So therefore, what are the 8 stages of the new product development? So a lot of things that I explained to you here are practical things that will help you with your report, will help you for business in general, because that's how you have to think. It's almost like if you're doing an internship, you will be able to use it. Between last time we saw you and this time, there's someone that told me that they actually went to a job interview and they actually pitched the project that they're working on in my class. And they said they got a job because when they started pitching this, the person interviewing them found it very exciting, and said that this made them so much more exciting to listen to, because they had something real to talk about. And the students told me that and said she couldn't believe it. And I'm telling you, that's what interviewers want to hear. Real project like this, where you thought of the pros and cons, the strategy, the critical success factors, the opportunities, you did some research and you found this and you made changes and you made a mistake and you corrected it. That's what they want to hear, because that's the type of people that they want to hire. Not someone that is looking for a job, not someone that is looking for money, someone that is here to solve a problem. And they know that to solve a problem, you have to be curious, you have to look for information. So the first stage of the product development strategy, new product development, it's ID generation. So that's the one everybody understands, is at the beginning, you just throw IDs. So what's important in the ID generation, and you're doing this, and we did that even today by coming up with some IDs, the size of the bottle, the organic just a few minutes ago, is you just throw the IDs. The first thing is the bigger your list, the better. So you don't refrain yourself, is just put it in the list. Next, 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 next. The bigger the list, the better. The next one is the ID screening, which goes into looking at that list and seeing which one makes the most sense. So the one that makes the most sense are the ones that are, you can discuss the opportunity. So it's not just an ID, because remember, ID are not worth that much. It's the opportunity that supports the ID that is worth something, because you can invest into the opportunity. Then you look at if you have the competency, how close to are you able to do that? Like, oh yeah, it's going to take us a week. Oh yeah, it's going to take us 30 years. No, things that's going to take you 30 years, you don't do them. So it's you don't want to pick the things that are easier, but you want to pick the things, the ideas that you know you can complete. And then from there, what you do is you create a prototype. So maybe it's just a visual prototype, or you create a 3D, more fancy prototype, or you actually do a 3D printing where you create a real physical prototype. And then you test it. So it's the prototype is very rough. You could have several IDs that you've selected, several prototypes, and you just test them. Then you have the marketing strategy. So there is where you explain who are the targets, what are the strategies, what are the pros and cons of the strategies, what are the sub-strategies, what are the tactics, and all of this. And the steps, what we do the first month, the second month, so you do a schedule and all that. Then you have the business analysis. So the business analysis is, okay, fine. We're going to spend this much money. We're going to have these strategies. It's going to be the timeline. This is what we're going to do in June. This is what we're going to do in September. This is how much we're going to spend. This is how much all of this is going to cost. And then you do the break-even analysis. Is when do we start making money? How much does it cost? When do we invest more? When do we invest less? When do we start seeing a profit? When does the revenue increase? When do we, so when you anticipate that there's going to be money made. Then the product development is when you actually make the product for real. And at that time, you could develop the product. So you make 1,000, 5,000, 5 million, 10 million, depending on, the type of business you are and how many you plan to sell. And then you may sell the product at that time. Or better, what you do is you do, if it's possible, to make slight adaptation. So it's not big adaptation, but minor adaptation that you want to do. So you test your product another time. But this time, the product is now rough. If you were to make some changes, there would be 2%, 3% changes, small, minor changes. So you test the product by selling it to just one store, one city, one store. Selling it online just for 1 day, 2 days, just to get some sales, just to get some feedback. Or you could even do test market by doing some large experiments. If you remember, there's a strategy called experiment. So I had this when I talked to you about the research. The 3 steps of research. The first steps is you're doing focus group, Google search, Wikipedia search, just to make it very simple, right? The second one is descriptive, where you're trying to get some statistical significance. So it's thousands of people getting a survey. And then the last one is experimental and causal research, where you test the product into a lab experiment. So that one, I told you that you don't do it too often. But that's one way you can do test marketing inside your new product development strategy. So in this one, you can test by one city, one country, one store, one website, 1 day, small amount. Or you can also do it through an experiment. So this time, you're not really selling it for real to the consumers. So what you do is you get consumers you give them $100 and you say, go buy dairy products. And they all get $100 and go into a store, and they're being filmed and they're being asked questions before they go shop and after they go shop. And then you see what they do in the store. And then when they go and do in the store, it's not just for A2 Milk, but they're doing research inside the research firm, which is collecting data for multiple products, so it costs you less money. And they're collecting also information on A2 Milk and see how they spend this money on. So that will give you some feedback, and there you can also make some adjustments in order to go to the stage of commercialization, where there it's actually a launch. And here again, you can decide to do a full launch, or you could decide to do a progressive launch, where you will focus first on the innovators, because you want to create the movement and you want them to go. So if you were to decide to make a A2 Milk, I think it'd be interesting for the people who are into fitness. So it's A2 Milk Fitness, let's say that's the name. And therefore it's market development, because you sign into a new group. I think it would be product development, because you would want to change the product quite significantly in order to fit this group. You will want the first people to use your product to be sort of the influencers of the fitness. So they could be coach, they could be people that are professional athletes, successful athletes. They would talk about this milk and so forth. Is that realistic? Very realistic. Is this a good idea? It's a brilliant idea. Is it likely to work? I'm not 100% sure because I haven't done the research, but I have a pretty good feeling that there's this A2 protein, maybe something that speaks to the sports people, and it could be interesting to see how they react. You know, the plant-based versus the animal protein and all that. There is a lot of debate and a lot of books and all that on it. So I think that could be something valuable. All right. Do you have any questions? Well, this was I hope, a class that was able to bring a lot of new angles to to your views of business and launching a new product, being an entrepreneur, being entrepreneurial, having a startup, having your own company, working as a high-ranking executive in a company where you have to come up with new products. And remember, what's important is not a new idea. A new idea is just the start, you see. The new idea is right there. So when you have ideas, they are not strategies. Strategy is the A thing. That's why the idea is just a small bit. And therefore, the idea is only worth what it's worth after you go to the process of evaluation. Okay, I have a good feeling. Hopefully, you learned something. Next week, it's a class which is going to be online. So next week, it's they have a name for it. Suddenly I lost the name. Yes, asynchronous. So next week it's asynchronous. So the idea of this asynchronous class next week is very important because the ball is on your side. The idea is that you, on your group, take advantage of the fact that I'm not going to give a lot of lectures and videos to watch. And this is going to give you extra time to meet with your group and make a lot of work. So either I would not recommend that you wait for next week to work with your group on this. I think you should go next week prepared, having done some work before you meet. So if you wait to meet and bring my feedback at the meeting next week, you will have lost 2 weeks. And you don't want to do that. So work on it on your Google Docs and take advantage of that extra time to work further, but don't use this as the only time that you're going to meet. Okay. If you don't have it, yes.
I have a question. So you want next week you said asynchronous. Does that mean our group, like, so we come to this Zoom and we meet with our group?
No, you did this. We had an asynchronous before in February, and so what I do is I'm going to send you some video to watch. But those videos are not going to take 2 hours and 45 minutes. You're probably going to watch them in 20 minutes or something like that. So what I recommend is therefore, because it's an asynchronous class, that you take advantage of the class time, which, you know, sometimes it's hard to meet. When are you available? Oh, not this night, not this morning, and all that. And then it's like, wow, trying to get 5 or 6 people to meet at the same time is very difficult. Well, not next week, because it's an asynchronous class. So you can create your own Zoom meeting. You can have the Google Doc open and you can work on it and do some damage. That's a day where you should be able to do some damage. But I'm saying try to do something before that. Don't try to get the paper done just on that asynchronous 19th of April day.
Okay.
I just know that because before I used to not do that. And the day I decided to give students class time to work on their group projects, the grades went up. It was super obvious. So then I decided, what do I want? I want my students to do well. So then I'm going to just do what works for them. So I give this asynchronous time. It's long, you know, it's 3 weeks before the paper is due, but it's only 3 weeks. So it's time to move. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
And I, we know I'll have office hours before anyway, between 2 and 4. So if people want to meet with me before, I can meet for 2 hours before with the groups. And I think you should come with a revision. I recommend not to come with a paper from 2 weeks ago and say, hey, professor, from the paper from 3 weeks ago that you reviewed 2 weeks ago, that we haven't done anything now for 2 weeks. What do you think we should do here? I mean, that's 3 weeks wasted. So I think you should work on it. Show up to my office hours. I give you some feedback. When you go into the class that everybody has time, there's no saying I can't meet, because that's the class time. How can they say I can't meet? People are going to say I can't meet. Just be sure of that. But there's no way of saying it at that time. Then take advantage, meet and discuss it.
Maybe we're going to be with our groups next week.
Yeah, you'll be with your groups next week. Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you to you, and have a good week. And send me emails.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.